first time it happened, it was just myself, my little sister, and my mom at home. It was around 2, maybe 3 a.m., and I was woken up by my dog barking nonstop in the living room. I went outside into the living room and walked to the front door. I picked up my dog, and then through a window, I saw a man passed out on the front mat. Worried that he was hurt, I opened the door and asked him if he was okay and if he needed anything. He just looked at me, stunned, and mumbled, "I'm okay." I should mention, young people passed out around the house was normal, as my brother was in college and had people over all the time, but it was dark, so I couldn't really see at the time that he was older. I could feel something was off though, so I went and got my mom and went back to bed. She came in a few moments later and said, "Don't worry about it, he's gone, go back to sleep now." About 15 minutes later, I heard the doorknob jiggle again. He had come inside and was now walking around. I was petrified. I peeked out of my door to see what was happening. This was the weird part. He was looking intensely at family photos and just gazing around the house. I watched for a second in disbelief before I slipped away into my mom's room with my dog. I told my mom he was in the house and we called the police. I've never seen her so scared. I was the one having to comfort her. I remember she was holding a wine bottle while I was on the phone to the police. We kept hearing him pace up and down the hallway, but thankfully, he never entered the room. I had a little sister who was upstairs, and we were all so worried. It took 45 minutes until the police arrived, and when we told them about everything that had happened to us, they just told us that there wasn't much they could do. He was gone. A couple of days later, my mom told me on that night, he had told her, "I know your family. I know your life. I watch you. You tempt me." I understood why she was so scared. Around a month later, we were having lunch outside on the front porch, and this man just walked over in the light of day, and he looked at me directly in the eye and asked me if I had seen Val. I had never in my life even met a Val. My brother, realizing who it was, told him he needed to leave, so he did. I burst into tears and went into my room for hours. A couple weeks later, around Christmas time, I was home alone watching something on TV. It was around 9 to 10 p.m. when out of the corner of my eye, I saw his face pressed against the front door. He was grinning and pointing at me. I honestly felt like I was gonna die. I went into the hallway, the only place without windows, and crouched down, just crying. I knew the police would take forever, so I called my friend, and she rushed over within 10 minutes, but he was gone when she got there. That was the last time I saw him. Detectives came over to my house a couple days later and explained everything. He was a paranoid schizophrenic who had serious drug habits. The night I was home alone, he had assaulted multiple women. He thought I was someone I wasn't, this Val person, and was sadly delusional. I now have a restraining order against him, and he's locked up. The crime problem in my town isn't stopping anytime soon. My town is one of many in my local area with high burglary and murder rates, and the local police force just doesn't seem to care enough. Anyone that does either doesn't have the resources to do something about it or becomes the next victim. It was my day off, so I had some friends over that night, eating junk food and playing video games. Later, after everyone left, the food coma hadn't quite kicked in yet, so I decided to browse Reddit for a while. I certainly wasn't expecting any visitors at 11 at night, so the sound of footsteps by my front door certainly startled me. I got up from my couch to take a look, and some asshole was on my porch, looking like he was trying to break into my house. Normally, an encounter like this would be scary enough as it is, but recently in my town, there have been a string of break-ins and murders. 36 confirmed victims during 14 break-ins, 6 of which identified the same culprit. A medium-build white man wearing jeans, a jet black parka, work boots, a face mask, and tinted sunglasses. His most recent victims being my friend's boss and his family of 6, about 5 blocks down from my house. And I was looking at this man not even a meter away from my front door, which wasn't even locked. I thought, no, I knew I had locked it. I remember locking it as Kyle left. After I saw the man, he sprinted off my porch and out of view behind the window, and let me tell you, I absolutely lost my shit. Barstool against the door handle, I did a full, thorough perimeter check of the house. Everything was locked, nothing was open, nobody was inside, and I was safe. As soon as I heard it, I bolted straight for my front door, and that man was right there on my porch again. When he saw me, he ran back away to the same place. I felt terrified, helpless, and powerless in a weird way. And then I looked down and saw the door was unlocked. My mind was racing, trying to rationalize what was going on. I had just locked this door, and there was no way it had gotten unlocked on its own. But I was also sure that no one else was in the house. Maybe he had picked the lock? No, he was a reasonable distance from the door. Even if he did have enough time to pick the lock and run back, why would he do that in the first place? It just didn't make any sense. As soon as I looked back, he was right there, right in that exact same spot on my porch, and the door was unlocked again. Is this some kind of joke? Maybe this was some kind of prank. I tried to reason to myself, trying to make reality out of the situation. I called Steve. No answer. I called Braden. No answer. I called Kyle. He picked up.
What the hell do you want? It's almost midnight.
Knock your shit off, guys. This isn't funny.
What?
Shut up and go home. It's too late for this. Kyle didn't say anything, and the call ended. I looked back on my porch, and there he is, in that same spot. And go figure, the door was unlocked. I was about to follow him out there and show his jaw a really funny joke until my brain stopped me. What if this wasn't a prank? Well, then what was it? This felt like a fever dream, and I didn't even know what to think. My brain felt like it was in 20 places at once, and they all contradicted each other. I spent the rest of the night thinking, trying to figure out what was happening, and it seemed that whenever I took my eyes off that door, he came back and the door would unlock. This brought more questions than answers, like, what if I left it unlocked? What if I don't come back to it? What if I go outside? Should I go outside? Or is that what this thing wants? Most importantly, what is going on? My mind looped that entire night. None of my friends would pick up after that. I just needed someone to talk to, just some form of human interaction. So I ordered a pizza. The nearest place would get here in about 45 minutes, but that was well worth it. While I was waiting, I studied the burglar and his movements. They were exactly the same each time, which made everything so much more bizarre. He would always turn clockwise, begin his first stride with his right foot, and open the porch gate with his left hand, specifically grabbing it by the fourth rung down. I still had no idea where he went after that, but at least it was a way. The parka had stains, brown stains. We can both guess why. Eventually, my pizza arrived, and I made extra sure that the pizza guy made it in and out safely. He gave me my pizza and got back in his car. Everything went smooth, until it didn't. He never drove away. He just sat there behind tinted windows. At least, I hope he just sat there. The alternative option is much worse. I spent the rest of the night trying to figure out what this thing wanted, why it was here, and what it wanted with me. In the morning, I checked around the house, and then the pizza guy's car. All clear. Even the car, completely empty, even though I saw him get in. I feel terrible. I explained what happened to my friends, half expecting them to laugh their asses off at me. And then they looked at me like I had 4 legs, like I was crazy. Does anyone have any ideas on what I should do? Tomorrow I'm getting a second lock and a deadbolt, but I have no idea what I'm gonna do for the night. Wish me luck, I guess. This happened to me when I was younger, and it still haunts me to this day. I was 14 years old, living in South Africa. Sometimes I heard gunshots outside my house, but that's normal here, along with power outages. I was fortunate to live in a big house with plenty of security. We had 2 gates, security cameras everywhere, and motion detectors. Anyway, I was sitting and eating dinner with my family, and when my brother asked me, "Hey, did you hear that?" I replied, "No." He went on to say that he heard something break outside on our patio, like a wine bottle or something. Since I wasn't paranoid like him, I finished eating and went to go study for my exam and sat on the couch in the living room. A bit after that, my parents announced that they were going to the gym as they do on Saturday nights, so I said goodbye to them and carried on working. I never should have let them go. As I worked, I heard a crash from outside near the patio, like my brother said. What happened next sends shivers down my spine to this day. My brother walked into the living room looking panicked. I'd never seen him so scared in my life before. He sat down next to me and stared at me eyes wide open for about 10 seconds with a look of complete and utter fear. What's wrong? I stuttered.
Upstairs, now!
He exclaimed while grabbing my arm viciously. What the hell is going on? I asked once we were upstairs. He didn't answer. He just started winding the shutter down. The shutter is a large door that connects the downstairs to the upstairs. We're only supposed to use the shutter in emergencies, as it's made of a strong metal that's hard for an intruder to break through. He then ushered me to his room, the third story of our house, which overlooks our garden and patio. Putting a single finger over his mouth to shush me, he pointed to what looked like a dark figure by our patio. At first, it looked like a long shrub, but as I adjusted and focused my eyes, I had to stop myself from shrieking. The realization made my blood run cold. A man holding a broken wine bottle was pacing around our patio. He looked about 5'9" with a shaggy beard, but that's not what scared me the most about him. His eyes were wide open and he was smiling, a smile so sinister and crazed. He looked as if he'd just been let out of a mental institute. Who is he? I started saying. Bad mistake. The man turned to us and looked directly into my eyes with that same agonizing, crazed look that gave me goosebumps. He then started to run, a slow, staggering run that made him look injured. Towards the door to the inside of the house he went, and I was sure he was coming for us. I was so shaken up I could hardly breathe, and so was my brother, and without a word he took my hand and we headed to my room on the second floor. Since I'm his little brother, he always considered me his responsibility, so he held my hand and told me everything was going to be okay, even though I knew inside me that it wasn't. Just then, we heard slow clapping footsteps coming up the stairs. But the shutter was closed, so he wouldn't be able to get to us. But just then, at just the worst possible time, the power cut, leaving my brother and I in total darkness. We stumbled around and managed to close the door, locking it. He then explained to me that without the power, the shutters can be pried easily open. At that moment, I thought for sure that my life was going to end soon. Just then, I heard an excruciating sound that sounded like the shutters being forced open. I headed for my drawer to get my hunting knife that I had received as a birthday gift. In my right hand, I clutched my knife, and in the other, I held my brother's hand. Suddenly, the sound of the shutters opening stopped. What replaced it was the sound of something metal, presumably a knife, scraping up against my bedroom door. We sat there shaking, not knowing what to do. When I asked my brother if he had his phone on him, he stated he'd already called 112, which is our 911, but we both knew that the 112 squad would take a long time to come, since here in South Africa they usually hang out at McDonald's instead of coming for their duties. The scraping at the door continued for what seemed like ages. Seconds felt like minutes, and then my brother made me hide in my cupboard and hand him my hunting knife. With my heart racing and my palms sweating, I heard the sound of police vehicles outside, and my brother used the gate remote key to open up for them. They rushed in and captured the man. The police told us the man had been on the run from the local asylum for the past 3 months and had been charged with manslaughter 2 times before he was sent to the local asylum. If my brother hadn't been there to help me, God knows what would have happened to me. I hope the man is recovering and that he gets all the help he needs. Thank you for listening to my story. I just needed to share the horror so that y'all could get a feel of how nightmarish that day was. This was by far the most scary thing that's ever happened to me before. My roommate and I lived in a 2-story condo during our last year of college. It was in a good part of town and relatively new development with mostly neighbors around our age. Over the course of the year, we had made friends with several of the tenants in the complex, so it wasn't surprising when someone would knock on our door late in the evening wanting to have a drink or just hang out. Both of our bedrooms were upstairs, one overlooking the backyard and one overlooking the front door and parking space. My bedroom was one overlooking the front door. One night I was laying in bed well after midnight, cramming for the last exam I would ever take in my college career. I was halfway asleep when someone started knocking on our front door. I thought very little of it, as there was a girl that lived next door who my roommate would occasionally hook up with. I just assumed it was her trying to come over after a night of partying. Soon, the knocking on our door sounded like someone was lowering their shoulder and running into the door like they were trying to break in. I went to my window overlooking the door and could see a person that was trying to knock down our front door. It was clearly not the girl from next door that I thought it may be. This was a fairly large male, and he seemed intent on getting inside our place. He would take a few steps back, get a running start, and then hit our door as hard as he could. He wanted in. I left my bedroom and walked down the hallway to the other bedroom to wake up my roommate. Somehow, he wasn't awake from the noise. As soon as I opened his door, I heard our front window glass shatter downstairs. The guy that broke in then said,
"All right, here we go,"
in a tone that told us this guy meant business. He sounded really pissed off. We locked the bedroom door and went through the bathroom that joined our two bedrooms and locked my bedroom door as well. Neither of us had a gun, just a couple of baseball bats if he did happen to make his way upstairs. We then called the police. We could hear him rummaging around downstairs, breaking some stuff, and going through our belongings. And then he was silent. A few minutes later, several police cars pulled into the neighborhood and eventually into our place. An officer came upstairs to get us, and when we walked downstairs, there was the perpetrator, lying on our couch in just his underwear. He was high on some drugs and passed out once he saw the closest thing to a bed, I guess. Not sure why he chose our place, but his life may have been saved by the fact that nobody in our house had a gun. I guess this story isn't as sinister as others, but when he came busting through that glass and said, "All right, here we go," I thought we were done for.